through which at every step genes are expressed ultimately in order to form the protein. So regulation of gene expression, it refers to a very broad term that may occur at various levels. Considering that gene expression results in the formation of a polypeptide, meaning a protein. That's what happens ultimately, right? So basically, what happens is that whenever in our body there is a need for a protein, there is a need for any kind of enzyme or any kind of hormone to be synthesized, it is regulated at a very basic level, meaning the information goes up till the point of the nucleus. Okay, and even at the point of the gene. Okay, switch on your video.
Yes.
So it goes up till the point of that gene, and at every level it gets expressed. So even if there's a tiniest protein that has to be synthesized, so this has to go through like the DNA replication, transcription, and then translation level, meaning throughout it has to travel in order to form one tiny protein as well. So in the case of eukaryotes, the regulation of gene expression, it is done at 4 levels. The first is the transcriptional level when the RNA is formed. Second, when the RNA is being modified, so at the splicing level, meaning in the processing, at that point of time also, the gene expression takes place. After that, the gene expression also takes place while the mRNA is being transferred from the nucleus to the cytoplasm. For what? For translation. So whilst that also, gene expression happens, and ultimately when it is the time for the translation to take place, then also the regulation of gene expression takes place. Clear?
Um, Regulation. What is gene expression?
The whole thing that I said, meaning the whole entire process wherein ultimately the protein has to be formed. So that whole entire process wherein it happens at every level, that is your gene expression. How the gene expresses itself ultimately up until the point the protein has to be formed. Clear?
Yes.
That is your gene expression. Now the genes in the cell, they are expressed to perform a particular function or a set of the functions. In the case of eukaryotic organisms, functionally related genes do not represent an operon but are present on different sites on the chromosome. See, what is an operon? Operon is a cluster of genes. But when we talk about higher organisms, such as the case of eukaryotic organism, so in them, there is no such operon. Okay, there no such cluster of genes present, but those genes, they have a site present on the location, like different locations in the chromosome. And you also know that in the case of eukaryotic organism, there is the presence of exons and introns, isn't it? In which the introns are non-essential and the exons are essential. So this kind of arrangement of the gene that the eukaryotes have, we call it as the split gene. That has exon, introns, and so on. So the triplet, that is amino acid matching, is not continuous. So in order to find or to make that continuous, what has to be done? The splicing has to be done, isn't it? Then only the exons will be joined and then we'll have a proper coding strip or the coding strand. So the removal of non-coding part is your RNA splicing, which you already know. So about 50 to 90% of the primary transcribed RNA is discarded during processing. Maybe let's just say there is a sequence of RNA that only has introns, has very few, or even you can imagine one exon or like that. So that RNA is essentially non-coding, isn't it? It's not useful. So that gets discarded. So 50 to 90% gets discarded during the processing part. The development and differentiation of embryo into adult, like while the growth is happening in vitro, not in vitro, in vivo. So from embryo stage to adult stage, that also results into the regulation of expression of several sets of genes. Then only the whole entire human being is formed. Imagine like organ formation, blood formation, different types of tissue formation. So each of them doesn't happen all at once. These are separate processes that takes place at separate time periods. So that is also a lot of regulation of gene expression happens whilst the organism is being developed from an embryo. Clear? Apart from all of this, the metabolic, physiological, and environmental condition also regulates the expression of gene. Depending upon that, for example, if let's just say environmental conditions we're talking, so maybe in certain environment there is a requirement of more protein production, and then in certain there is a requirement of less protein production. More protein production means the cell will be working overtime. Less protein production means the cell will be working normally. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, can you explain the operon part?
Operon is a cluster of genes. Okay, a cluster meaning a set of genes that are present together. Okay, this operon that we talk about is mostly found in the prokaryotes. The genes in the case of eukaryotic organism, they are not present in the form of an operon. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now there are two things you should know, that the genes of prokaryotes are called as polycistronic genes, whereas the genes of eukaryotes are called as monocistronic genes. What is the meaning? Polycistronic means a molecule of mRNA which will code for multiple proteins. So here, one mRNA will be coding for multiple proteins. Okay. Whereas monocistronic is when a molecule of RNA will code for one protein. So one mRNA, one protein. But in prokaryotes, one mRNA, multiple proteins. So always remember this fact that prokaryotes are polycistronic, eukaryotes are monocistronic. Clear?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
this operon that we talk about is a characteristic of prokaryotic organisms. Now, let us talk about that. Francis Jacob, who was a geneticist, and Jacques Monod, who was a biochemist, they proposed a model of gene regulation of bacteria. They called it as the operon model in bacteria. Now, like I told you, operon is a cluster of gene, a group of gene, or a set of gene, anything you can call it. So it is a coordinated group of genes. Now, what all things are present in an operon? If you remember, just like how there was a transcription unit that had promoter area, terminator area, right? Different areas were there.
Yes.
Same way, in the operon, you have structural gene present, you have operator gene present, you have promoter gene present, regulator gene present. Okay, so these are the 5 things, or all in all, not 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 things that are present that together make up an operon. So what are the 4 things of operon? The operon system, meaning a structure of set of genes. They have, first of all, the promoters gene, they have operator gene, they have regulator gene, and structural gene. 4 types of genes are present as a set in an operon. Clear?
Ma'am, is there a specific number of genes that an operon consists?
See, do you see this one?
Yes.
These ones? Right. So these are your structural genes. Okay. I mean, not structural genes, meaning the different types of genes that are found in the operon. Each of them have their own specific function and own specific name. If you see over here, the Z, Y, A together, they are called as the structural genes. Okay. O is the operator gene, the P is the promoter gene, and I is your regulatory gene. Clear? So you have 4 types of genes in an operon. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Now you've seen this. You like can make like. Do you understand what I've said about the set of genes? This part, because now I will explain the function of each of the genes. Okay. So Is this thing clear?
Ma'am, ZYA. Ma'am, what was ZYA?
Structural gene. They have different names. So this particular operon that we are representing, they have 3 structural genes.
Ma'am, structural gene.
I haven't told you the meaning of each of the genes here right now. Just remember the names. Okay, structural genes. So there are 3 structural genes in this particular operon. Then you have an operator gene, you have a promoter gene, and then you have the regulator gene. Okay, this much is clear. Now I'll tell you the function of each of them. See, a regulator gene, before this, you should know that prokaryotes, they have a lot of operons. Okay, a lot. Like lac operon, that is lactose operon. You have TRP operon, that is tryptophan operon. ARA operon, that is arabinose operon. HIS operon, that is histidine operon. VAL operon, that is valine. So these are with the metabolic pathways. Okay. So if I'm talking about lac operon, it will tell us about the metabolism of lactose. If I'm talking about tryptophan operon, it will tell us about the metabolism of tryptophan and so on. Clear?
Yes.
Hmm. Now the first one, that is the regulator gene. So regulator, the name only suggests that it is going to regulate the process. Isn't it? Regulate. Now regulation means it can increase, it can decrease. Like that is what regulation is. You might have seen a regulator in the cooking stove, right? You can increase
Yes.
the flame, you can decrease the flame. Just like that, regulator gene is the gene that will synthesize a biochemical, or it will synthesize a regulator protein. Okay. Now, because of the presence of this protein, it can activate the process or repress it, meaning it can either activate it or inhibit it. So, regulator gene is the gene that produces the protein that could be an activator, or it could be a repressor or inhibitor. Clear?
Does it have the ability to completely switch on or switch off?
Yeah, that is what its job is. Okay. It synthesizes a protein which will either switch off the process or switch on the process. Meaning, either it will activate the process or it will inhibit the process. Okay. So what it does is that it controls the activity of operator gene. Okay. Now, second, operator gene. So this one is a gene which is going to receive the product of regulator gene. Meaning, if the regulator gene is making an activator, then where will the activator bind? To the operator gene. Okay. So it receives the product of the regulator gene. Understood?
Yes.
So it allows the functioning of the operon when it is not covered by biochemical produced by regulator gene. Meaning again, it is under the direct influence of the regulator gene. If the regulator gene activates it, the operator gene will get activated, the process will continue. If the operator gene is getting inhibited by the regulator gene, then the process will get inhibited. Clear?
So, ma'am, what is the difference between the both?
The difference is that regulator gene is going to synthesize a protein, or it is going to synthesize a chemical, right? This protein, this chemical could either be an activator or it could be a repressor. This thing you've understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Operator gene, like whatever product that the regulator gene synthesizes, where will it go to activate or inhibit? It will go to operator. So operator gene is waiting for regulator gene to produce either the activator or the inhibitor, with which it will act whatever it is supposed to. Clear?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Then the third is promoter gene. So promoter gene is the gene that is there for the attachment for RNA polymerase. When is RNA polymerase required?
Ma'am, for RNA synthesis.
For RNA synthesis. And what is the step? Transcription, right?
Yeah.
So for that transcriptional process, the promoter region is the site where the RNA polymerase would come and bind. And lastly, there are the structural genes that will be making the mRNA for polypeptide synthesis, meaning structural genes are the ones that will undergo the process of transcription and make the mRNA. Further, that mRNA will undergo the process of translation to make the protein. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, let us see these all things in action with the example of the lactoperon. So lactoperon, lac refers to lactose. Now this lactoperon, it has one regulatory gene. It has, like the regulatory gene could also be called as the inhibitor gene in this case. Okay, which is I, represented as I, that you might have seen. Okay, and one more thing, you remember it like piposia. Okay, I always say, so P is the what? Promoter. Okay, I is your inhibitor gene or regulator gene. Okay. After that, you have another P. So there is your promoter. Okay. One more region. Then you have O, that is operator. And then you have Z, you have Y, and you have A. So piposia, you remember it like that so that you'll know the sequence. Okay. This is how it is. So it has one promoter region and one operator region, and then three structural genes are present. These are the three structural genes. So a polycistronic structural gene is regulated by a common promoter and a regulatory gene. So polycistronic means the three of them are going to form the mRNA, and each of those mRNA are going to form multiple proteins. Clear?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, this is in the case of prokaryotes, right?
Bacteria. Yes. Now, in E. coli, particularly E. coli, the most studied bacteria, what is the full form of E? In E. coli,
Uh, e-
what is E?
Ma'am, I
It is the
can't.
most studied bacteria, most studied. Like anywhere you see any kind of study, you have E. coli, E. coli, E. coli. So, what is E. coli? No, studying all the high level things and then forgetting all the low level things. E stands for Escherichia coli.
Escherichia.
Hmm. So, in this operon, we're studying how the lactose is being broken down in order to get energy. Like how in our body, glucose is broken down to release energy. That
Yes.
happens in respiration. In E. coli, they can use lactose also to get the energy. What kind of a molecule is lactose? Like, what kind of a biomolecule is it? Lactose is what?
Um,
Hmm.
meaning like
Which kind of a biomolecule is lactose? Is it a protein? What is
it is protein.
it? I gave you protein option, so it is protein. No, it's not a protein. Lactose is a disaccharide, meaning it's a sugar. It's a sugar
Yes.
that is made up of two monomeric units. What is lactose made up of? What are the two sugars that come together, join, and make the lactose?
Pentose. Pen.
Pentose is a common name, like 5 carbon sugars are called as pentose. Which two sugars? Glucose and galactose. Okay. Glucose
Gal.
comes together. Galactose comes together, they both join and make the lactose. So lactose is a disaccharide. It is made up of two monosaccharides. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So for the breakdown of lactose, the E. coli would be requiring three different types of enzymes. These enzymes are synthesized together in a coordinated manner. And you know that enzymes are proteinaceous. Most of the enzymes are proteins. So ultimately, gene expression has to take place. So since the addition of lactose itself stimulates the production of the required enzyme, we call it as inducible system. Inducible system is that whenever there will be enough media or enough lactose in the media for the bacteria, it will be synthesizing the enzymes to metabolize the lactose. Clear? Now, when we talk about the structural genes, the Z, Y, and A,
Ma'am,
what do they
can
code for?
you
Yes.
explain the lac part again?
See, lac thing is that, like, if bacteria has lactose surrounding it, it will utilize that lactose in order to get energy. So for getting energy, lactose has to be there. So because lactose is a substrate over here, isn't it? On which the enzymes will be produced by E. coli so that the lactose could be broken down and then the E. coli would get energy. So that is why we call it as an inducible system, because addition of lactose will cause this whole entire process to take place. If lactose is not there, this will not happen. Why would the enzymes be synthesized if the lactose are not there? Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
So the
Ma'am, so
structural
E.
gene,
coli synthesizes these enzymes when there is
all
enough
of these
lactose.
things E. coli is doing. Everything. Meaning this operon also E. coli is having. So the LAC-Z gene, it will be coding for beta-galactosidase enzyme. Okay, why is it there? Beta-galactosidase enzyme is the enzyme that would be required to break down the lactose into glucose and galactose. So for that breaking down, for that hydrolysis, LAC-Z will be synthesizing beta-galactosidase. This is the name of an enzyme. Second, LAC-Y, it codes for the enzyme called as permease, which increases the permeability of the cell to beta-galactosidase. Okay, it increases the permeability of the cell. And then lastly, there comes the LAC-A, which is coding for trans-acetylase enzyme. What does it do? It transfers the acetyl group to the beta-galactoside. So all of the enzymes have separate functions. You just learn them as it is. Beta-galactosidase breaks down the lactose into glucose and galactose. Permease increases the permeability of the cell so that beta-galactoside can enter it. Then only when it will enter, then only it will break down. And for the working of beta-galactoside, it will require acetyl group to be transferred. So that will be done by trans-acetylase enzyme. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now see this thing. Regulator gene, that is your I gene. So it will code for a protein called as repressor protein. Okay, which will be responsible for inhibiting or stopping the process of lac operon from taking place. Understood? And how will it do it? Well, if it will interact with the operator or if it will not interact, that depends. The promoter region is the part where the RNA polymer is attached. And now coming on to the operator gene. So this is the gene that will interact with the protein produced by regulator gene. And it will either on the process or off the process. Clear? Now how it
Ma'am,
happens?
regulator gene, ma'am,
Hmm.
it produces repressor gene.
Yeah, which will make repressor protein ultimately. Okay, now see what happens is that let's just say the repressor protein, let's just say lactose is not present in the media. Okay, E. coli did not get any lactose. So if you think about it naturally, if it doesn't have the lactose only, will it synthesize enzymes to break down lactose? No. Why? Because it doesn't need it. So the first case scenario is when the inducer, here what is your inducer? Inducer is the lactose. So when the lactose is absent, so this I gene, that was your regulator gene, it synthesizes the repressor mRNA. This repressor mRNA undergoes the process of transcription and forms the repressor protein. Now this repressor protein, once it is synthesized, you should know that the product of the regulator gene interacts with which of the gene?
The product of regulator gene will
Interacts with which gene of
operator.
the operator? Yes. So this repressor is going to go and bind at the operator. As a result of which, the RNA polymerase can't bind to the promoter, and then the whole entire process doesn't happen. So this is your switch off situation. Clear?
Can you go through it once more?
The lactose is absent. Lactose
Yes.
was your inducer. So in the absence of the inducer, normally, whether in the absence or whether in the presence, the regulator gene synthesizes the repressor mRNA, which undergoes translation and forms the repressor protein. Now this repressor protein, it goes and binds with the operator, as a result of which the RNA polymerase, it is not able to bind to the promoter and not able to do the transcription of Z, Y and A. So no enzymes are synthesized. So during this case, you can call it as a switch off operon. It's off.
So Z, Y and A are non-functional here.
They're not able to transcribe because RNA polymerase wasn't able to bind at promoter. Clear? Second, when you have the inducer lactose, now they have a reason to make the enzyme, because lactose breakdown, they need the energy. So now also the regulator gene will be synthesizing the repressor mRNA, which will be forming the repressor protein. But now what will happen is that this lactose that is there, it will go and bind with the repressor, thereby making a conformational change in the repressor. And now the repressor will not be able to bind with the operon. No. Why? Because the shape has changed. As a result of which the Z, Y and A undergoes transcription. 1 second dear. Okay, so now after that, talking about this thing, so now the repressor had its shape changed, as a result of which it will not be able to bind to the operator, and then all the genes will be synthesized. So the Z, Y and A, they will be synthesizing their mRNAs, which will undergo the separate translation to form beta-galactosidase, to form permease, to form transacetidase. And then the lactose will be broken down and the energy will be received. Clear?
What is inducer here?
Okay.
In the switch off case, it was interacting with operator, but here since inducer is there, it's becoming inactive.
Because it's not able to, changing the configuration, changing the shape of the repressor, thereby the repressor is not able to bind with the operator because of the change in the shape. Got it?
Yes.
So this was your lac open. Any doubts? Okay. Give me 1 second. All right. So now the concept of the operon is done. There is one more operon, that is your tryptophan operon, which I don't think is in your syllabus. Now, moving forward, talking about the Human Genome Project. Now, this is a huge, huge project that started in the year 1990. Okay. And the aim of this project was to sequence out the genome. Do you know what is genome is? Genome, like the whole set of genes any organism has, is called as the genome. Okay. So, according to the Human Genome Project, they wanted to sequence out the whole entire genome of human to find out how one individual is different from other, what are the different possible set of genes found in humans, like how many base pairs, how many nucleotides, everything. So, genetic makeup of an organism, that is the genotype, it lies in the DNA sequence that it has. The differences in two individuals will be because of the differences in the nucleotide sequence they have. They can be only known if the entire human genome is mapped. Then only you can understand how, like for example, your nucleotide sequence and my nucleotide sequence. Both of us are human beings, both of us belong to the same species. But still, we're very different from each other, right? Our facial features are different, the way I talk is different, the way you talk is how? It's because of the nucleotide sequence that we both have and that is unique to us. So if I wanted to know how you are different from me or how I am different from you, I would have to get my genome mapped, meaning every single gene study in order to find out the differences. Clear? But a person would think, how is it even possible? So it is possible with the use of genetic engineering, okay, wherein you can isolate and clone a piece of DNA. Isolate a DNA from any organism, and clone means make multiple copies of that DNA.
Isolate only one or a set of DNA.
One DNA, like DNA from one place. Same way, DNA from most of the places, like every place, would be extracted, isolated, and then made multiple copies of. Okay, this is like a basic concept that they're giving. So, keeping these things in mind, they wanted to sequence the human genome, and this was launched in the year 1990. So, this Human Genome Project is called as a mega project because this was actually a very, very huge project. It was an international project that, like several countries collaborated on, and all together haploid set of chromosomes that are there in a individual, like one set of chromosome that we have is called as the genome. Same way we have two sets of chromosome because we are diploid organisms. So Human Genome Project is called as the mega project, and it was a 13-year project, meaning the duration, the time period of this project was 13 years. Now, this was coordinated by the US Department of Energy and the National Institute of Health. Soon, Wellcome Trust in UK, they also joined, they sort of like collaborated. Okay, every country or these areas, they funded, and like contributions also came from Japan, France, Germany, China, and other countries as well. So this particular project, it was completed in 2003. Now let us see why was it called as a mega project. First, the cost. The cost estimated of this project was $9 billion US dollars, because they took one base pair, like the sequencing of one base pair is $3 in terms of US dollars. Okay. So all in all, 9 billion US dollars. Now, since we have a very large number of base pair, we have 3 into 10 to the power 9 base pair. Okay, so these, imagine 3 into 10 to the power 9 means these many. this has to be sequenced and it has to be identified. It requires a large number of scientists, technicians, and supporting staff. Then after this is done, the data that we have received, we have to store that, which required 3,300 books, each that had 1,000 pages, and each page containing 1,000 typed letters. So for it, high-speed computational devices would also be required, right? An analysis of data has to also be done. At that point of time, there was this field of science, bioinformatics, that was developed, which contained all the information so as to complete the Human Genome Project. Clear? So now you understand why was it known as the mega project?
Yes.
Now let us see what are the goals of Human Genome Project. So the goal was to identify 20 to 25,000 genes that are there in human DNA, to determine the sequence of 3 billion base pairs that make up the DNA, to store this information in database, to improve it for data analysis, to transfer it to different industries as well, and to solve ethical, legal, and social issues that come with it. Okay. So always remember that the field of science, bioinformatics, it was very closely related with the Human Genome Project because it had all the necessary informations and guides that the Human Genome Project would work on. Okay. Now, obviously, this was Human Genome Project, so human genome was being sequenced. But other than that, few of the non-human models were also taken, like as a representative. Non-human models. Like representative means like how E. coli. For any kind of thing that we want to study for prokaryotes or bacteria in general, we use E. coli. Why?
Yes.
Because imagine it being like a representative organism of that kingdom. So same way, these are non-human models that were taken, like E. coli was taken. Okay. Then Saccharomyces cerevisiae is the scientific name of Saccharomyces cerevisiae is the scientific name of. No, these two are very, very simple questions. Saccharomyces cerevisiae is the name of.
Scientific name.
This is the scientific name of which organism? It
Is
is the
it
name of yeast, unicellular fungi. Okay, so that's Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Then we have Caenorhabditis, which is a nematode. Nematode means a worm. Then we have Drosophila melanogaster, which is
fruit fly?
Drosophila is an
Fruit fly.
it is an insect, fruit fly. Then rice, the scientific name for which is Oryza sativa. Then Arabidopsis. Okay, so these are your non-human models that were also sequenced. Okay, but this project was like basically revolving around the humans. Now the two methods that you can say the two objectives or the two methodologies that were taken during the Human Genome Project was EST and sequence annotation. Now EST is called as expressed sequence tags. So this one is that all the genes that are expressed in our body in the form of RNA, like meaning they are only at the transcription post-transcriptional level. They have not been translated into proteins. So before being translated into proteins, there are RNA, mRNA, so many. So all those genes that are expressed in the form of RNA, we call it as the expressed sequence tag. Clear?
Yes.
Second, we have sequence annotation, meaning sequence annotation is like that the genome, it contains the coding sequences, non-coding sequences, right? So the whole entire genome that contains the coding as well as the non-coding sequences, that is your sequence annotation, meaning when you sequence that genome that has coding sequence also in it and non-coding also. Clear? To
The
find out.
next one. Is it related to intron and exon?
Yeah. Meaning unprocessed RNA. Imagine it like that. Okay. So now what is the whole entire method that is done? For sequencing, the total DNA from a cell is isolated. Okay. And then like for example, whatever DNA is isolated, that DNA is cut into fragments using an enzyme called as restriction endonuclease. Okay. This is not there in this, but you just understand that big DNA cut into smaller fragments. Okay. Because again, DNA is so long, you can't study all at once. So now you've cut it into fragments and then you clone it into a suitable host. Cloning means you take the gene or take that DNA fragmented, put it into the host so that whenever the host will divide, the gene will divide. That is called as cloning. Cloning means amplification, meaning making multiple copies of that piece of DNA.
Is it like replication? Or
Yeah, it is. Okay, so making
then
multiple,
why do you have to put it in the host for it to
because
replicate?
DNA, like when it is not present inside a cell, then it is not able to replicate. Na? It needs the whole entire environment. So for giving the environment, you're putting into a host cell. Now, whenever the host cell will divide, alongside the DNA will also divide, and thereby the DNA will get multiplied. Clear?
Who is the host cell?
See here, before putting it into the host, you put it into a vector. Now, what is a vector over here? The vector, these are your carriers. Like obviously, when you have to put gene into any of the cell, then you take carriers for that. Okay. So, carriers such as the bacterial artificial chromosome. This is the name of a vector. And yeast artificial chromosome. This is the name of another vector. So these two are the vectors that were used to deliver the gene of interest. And then later on, once the cloning was done, then the sequencing was done using the DNA sequencer that was developed by Frederick Sanger. Clear?
Ma'am, is the vector injected into human?
See, yeah. Imagine it like it being injected into a cell particularly so that it could be cloned. Okay. Now, the sequencing of it is done. And then these sequences, they have to be aligned, which is obviously not possible by doing it like, with manually. So you require computers for it. Okay. So the sequence of the chromosome 1 completed in May 2006. This was the last of the human chromosome to be sequenced. Okay. The last chromosome to be sequenced is chromosome number 1. Now, after this whole entire thing was done, let us see what were the findings. So, features of the Human Genome Project. Firstly, human genome contains 3164.7 million nucleotide bases. Those many bases are there. The average gene consists of 3000 bases, but again it varies depending upon the size of the gene. If the gene is huge, then it would have more bases. If the gene is small, it would have less bases. For example, there is a gene called as dystrophin. Dystrophin being the largest known human gene, it is 2.4 million bases it has. But TDF gene is the smallest gene with only 14 bases. Clear? The total number of genes is estimated at 30,000, which is much lower than what the estimations were made, 80,000 to 1,40,000, but it came out to be 30,000. And one of the biggest finding was that in every single human, whether it is you, me, anyone on the road, every single human, 99.9% nucleotide bases are same in everyone. It's just that 0.1% that makes us different. Clear? That
Ma'am,
0.1.
nine. So each nucleotide base is similar, like same.
Yeah, 99.9%. Only 0.1% difference makes us different from each other. So the functions are known for over 50% of the discovered gene. Out of that, only like less than 2% codes for protein. And then our whole entire genome has a lot of repeated sequences throughout. Repetition is there. Repetitive sequences, these are the stretches of DNA sequence that are repeated many times, sometimes hundreds to thousands of times. They do not have any coding function, but this is how they are present. Like this is what it is. It's the reality. Chromosome number 1 has the most number of genes, that is 2968, and the chromosome Y, which is the smallest chromosome, it has the fewest gene, that is 231.
Ma'am,
Scientists,
so in each human being, chromosome number 1
yeah,
has the
yeah,
same number of genes and same number of
unless
base pairs.
unless the person is mutated, unless the person has some sort of problem with chromosome 1, barring all those complications, every human, whether you, me, or anyone, they have. It is a sequenced value. Now, scientists have identified about 1.4 million locations where single base difference occurs in humans. 1.4 locations are those locations where the single base differences occurs in humans. We call it as SNPs, that is single nucleotide polymorphism. That 0.1% that I'm talking about. So that 0.1% or that difference in humans is at 1.4 million locations. Clear?
Ma'am, what is polymorphism?
Polymorphism is existing in different forms. Okay. So applications and future challenges of the Human Genome Project. First of all, see, application is that because now we know the sequence of the DNA, gene. So if any disease is based on the mutation, we can study the disease. We can understand how or because of which mutation on which gene that a particular disorder arises. Right? So that is the case. So completion of the first phase of Human Genome Project has been compared to the discovery of antibiotics because it has opened a vast database of knowledge and about various aspects of human genome. Soon we shall be mapping all the human genes, all sequences, transposons, junk DNA, meaning every single thing that is found. Like a lot of things have not been studied at this point of time. So those can be also sequenced. There are more than 1200 genes that cause common cardiovascular disorders, endocrine diseases like diabetes, then neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's, cancer, and other neurological ailments. So they can also be studied or like we can know that why is it happening so that we can alter the method to remove these diseases from ever happening. Gene defects can be corrected if we know which gene is being affected, isn't it? Like autism, maybe because of some gene that happens, right? So that could be done. It is possible to study interaction between various genes, proteins, as well as like the mechanisms of forming tissues, organs, tumors. Like we can study their developmental stages, maybe because of which type of mutation, because of which type of error in the metabolism, the tumors are developing, cancer is happening, all of that. So, the Human Genome Project and its success holds the promise of a healthier and longer living, making of designer drugs and genetically modified diets. Clear?
Ma'am, can acquired traits alter the the sequence?
Or acquired traits.
Like if you consume something, does that has the ability to make chemical imbalance and change the sequence?
If that thing is a carcinogen, cancer producing agent, if that thing is mutation producing agent, then it would be affecting the bases and stuff. But if it is a disease, a bacterial disease, a viral disease, so that doesn't happen at the genetic level. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Then we have the last topic of this chapter, that is DNA fingerprinting. Now, just like how normal fingerprints are there, which is unique to every person, isn't it?
Yes.
Like you have those phones that unlock with fingerprints. So, like if your fingerprint is there in your phone, I couldn't unlock it with my fingerprints, isn't it? No matter how hard I try. Same way, the DNA fingerprinting is just like that, telling us how my DNA fingerprint differs from yours. But well, like a monozygote, actually, do you know what is a monozygotic twin? Identical twins and non-identical twins. Do you know the scientific difference in between them?
Not the scientific.
It's a normal, non-scientific difference.
Yes, identical twins look exactly the same
Hmm.
as if they're clones, and non-identical look like that do not look alike.
Yeah. So when we talk about the identical twins, they are called as the monozygotic twins because they are made from one zygote. Like zygote is formed, that zygote splits into two, and then two separate developments happen. So that is your monozygotic twins. Because they are coming from the same zygote, they have the exact same basis. They even have the exact same fingerprints. Particularly the DNA bases that are there in them, you cannot find which one is what. Yeah, because their DNA are exactly the same because they're made from one common zygote. But apart from them, everyone has some sort of that 0.1 difference is there. Clear?
I'm sure their fingerprints are also the same.
See, fingerprints mostly, yes, same. So DNA fingerprinting, it involves identifying differences in some specific regions in DNA sequence that we call as repetitive DNA. Because you know that DNA sequences, they are short stretches of repetitive DNA, right? Well, it's repeated n number of times. So we want to find out what is the difference there. So these repetitive DNA, they are different from the bulk genomic DNA, meaning the main DNA. Okay, so there, like the bulk DNA, it forms a major peak, and the small peaks are formed by the repetitive DNA that is called as the satellite. Okay, meaning these are smaller in number, bulk DNA is more in number, obviously. Clear? Now there are two things, mini satellites and micro satellites. See, satellite DNA, you've understood. These are the DNA that are short stretches of repetitive DNA. They are different from the main core DNA. Okay. So
And
these
short
satellite,
stretches means
like in their case, the DNA sequences, they have multiple repeats. So the satellite DNA, it is classified into two types on the basis of base composition, whether they have adenine thymine more in them or guanine cytosine more in them. They are different on the length of the segment and the number of repetitive units. So first is VNTR, that is your variable number of tandem repeats. This is a mini satellite. Okay, amongst the satellite DNA, it is a mini satellite. It has been surrounded by conserved restriction sites. Okay, a small DNA sequence is arranged tandemly in many copy number, meaning it's like n number of time it is repeated, but it is a small DNA sequence. Depending upon the chromosome, the copy number is going to vary. Copy number means how fast can it replicate. More copy number means faster replication. Low copy number means lower replication. Clear?
ma'am.
Hmm.
Uh, Ma'am, what is bulk genome DNA? Can you tell again?
Bulk genome DNA is like the main like DNA of the cell. The main DNA, which is like the coding part, like the 99.9% is your bulk DNA. 0.1 is your repetitive sequence, satellite DNA. Clear?
Ma'am, major peak here. What does major peak and
Bulk
small
DNA
peak?
forms a major peak while you are doing centrifugation. Like when you spin it around, the DNA which is like major, like the bulk DNA, which is more in number, it will be giving you a major peak. Whereas the one that is in smaller like number, it will be giving you the small peak. Clear?
Peak.
Hmm. after centrifugation process is completed. Got it? Then your SSR is single sequence repeat or short tandem repeat. These are called as microsatellites and they are 1 to 6 base pairs small. So this is like the segmentation of satellites into two types. Now check in your NCERT book whether or not satellite part is given and tell me.
Ma'am, satellite is mentioned. Satellite is there.
Okay, so there. Now see, why are we talking about them? See, we are talking about these DNA, these different types of DNA, because these are the sequences. Like the satellite DNA sequence is that sequence. Like I told you, it will be not coding for any protein because that will be coded by the bulk genome. But they form a very huge portion of the human genome because they are repeated a lot of times. And they show high degree of polymorphism. Polymorphism means it is like variations it shows, different forms that it shows. Okay. And it forms the basis of DNA fingerprinting. Okay. Polymorphism is the variation that is seen at genetic level, meaning the different forms in which the gene could exist. So the whole entire basis of DNA fingerprinting is polymorphism. Clear? So it's
And
variation,
polymorphism is like basically the arrangement or the different forms that it can
different
express.
forms, different forms. So now DNA is present almost in every cell, every tissue of our body. So we take that DNA, like for example, it's present in the blood, it's present in the hair follicle. You might have seen those crime investigation series wherein even a drop of blood can help them identify the criminal, right? Have you seen CID, Indian serial CID? No. So in that, even if a tiny like one hair strand is found anywhere at the crime scene, that one hair strand could be used to extract the DNA and match the DNA of the suspect and the this thing, the one that was found at the crime scene. Clear?
Not saliva also.
Saliva also. Any kind of bodily fluid, whether bone, like the blood, saliva, even sperm, obviously sperm. Then there's hair follicle blood. So these things like DNA is present in every tissue, every single tissue. So these are very useful for the identification in terms of forensic application, right? For the criminal scene, for paternity dispute like that. So further, as the polymorphisms are inheritable, right? These variations that are present at the genetic level, they can be inherited from the parents to the offspring, right? So, like if the parental polymorphism is studied and the child's polymorphism is studied, both of them come same, then it would confirm that the child is the child of that particular parent, isn't it? The
Yes.
offspring. So, it is also used in the case of disputes. So as polymorphism is DNA in DNA is the basis of genetic mapping as well as of the fingerprinting. So you should know what it means. Polymorphism means the variations that arise at the level of the gene, and it is obviously because of mutations or as a result of sexual reproduction all in all. Clear? So DNA polymorphism in simple terms, you know what it means. Now allelic sequence. Variation has traditionally been described as DNA polymorphism if more than one allele occurs within a population with frequency greater than 0.01%. Meaning, if there is a particular allele that is occurring in a population with higher frequency, more than 0.01. Okay, so you describe the polymorphism at the allelic level also. You can describe. So, in simple terms, if an inheritable mutation is observed in a population at a high frequency, it is called as DNA polymorphism. Inheritable mutation, the mutation that goes from one generation to another generation. Clear?
Yes.
Now let us see the process. The basis of DNA fingerprinting is your VNTR, that is your variable number of tandem repeat, also called as the mini satellite. Now the technique of DNA fingerprinting, it was developed by the person called as Alec Jeffreys, and one more thing. He also studied or it's like used earlier, the whole entire technique was Southern blotting. You should remember there are different blotting techniques. Blotting techniques for the identification of different biomolecules. So to remember what are
What is
they,
blotting?
like for example, you know what blotting sheets are in general, those oil blotting sheets you might know about, right? People put it
Yes.
in their purses and stuff so that to blot out. Blotting is what? Transfer of something, isn't it? Transfer of
Yes.
the oil from the head or from the face into that paper. So same way, blotting techniques are there in the field of biology to get the protein, to get the DNA, to get the RNA, to extract it. Okay. So which blotting technique is for what? So you should remember this thing. Snow draw. You write snow draw, cut, oops, cut the O's. Now southern blotting is for DNA, northern blotting is for RNA, and western blotting is for protein. Clear? Southern, northern, and western. Three types of blotting techniques are there. Southern is
Yes.
for DNA, northern is for RNA, and western is for protein. Clear?
Yes.
So that is your case. Now, what are the steps of DNA fingerprinting? First, DNA is isolated. Again, DNA is digested, meaning fragmented, made smaller pieces using restriction endonuclease. These restriction endonuclease, these are called as molecular scissors.
They they help in the cutting of DNA?
Yeah, they cut the DNA. So they are known as molecular scissors. They break down the phosphodiester bond that is there in the DNA. Now, once you're done cutting the DNA, then you will separate those fragments because you'll have so many fragments. So you'll separate them by electrophoresis technique, which you will study in biotechnology chapter. Okay, so you'll separate them by electrophoresis, or you will do restriction, fragment, length, polymorphism. This can also be done. It is again a technique to separate the fragments of DNA. Now, once the DNA fragments have been separated, you will transfer it into a nitrocellulose membrane or a nylon membrane. Remember that sheet that we were blotting the face with? That is usually like a paper. So here, the sheet or the membrane on which you will blot is your nitrocellulose or nylon membrane. Then you do hybridization using a VNTR probe. Sort of like imagine you are labeling it. Okay, with a radioactive probe, you are labeling it. And then autoradiography is done. It is sent into a machine to detect the hybridized DNA. And then it will give you the different bands. Clear?
Ma'am,
Hmm.
labeling part.
Labeling, just like how, for example, you make a model, how you label the different parts of the model, isn't it?
Yes.
So same way, imagine it at the molecular level, you're labeling that DNA that you're studying with a probe. A probe is like a label. Imagine you're actually coloring it a bit, or you're putting some radioactive material there so that you can identify it from the rest. Clear?
Yes.
So that is your probing, labeling. And then once you've done autoradiography, these type of bands will be produced, which you can study and compare two people's bands and find out whether or not they are same or they are different. Clear?
Yes.
Now
Ma'am,
see,
what do the dark band represent?
Band. See,
Yes.
the bands are going to represent the patterns of the chromosome. Okay. So if the pattern of the chromosome and the pattern of the suspect is same, then you will say that that's the criminal or that's the whatever. So practical applications of DNA fingerprinting is paternity, maternity disputes, right? When the couple want, like it's in the case when they have a kid and the father accuses the mother of him not being the father of the child, somebody else being the father of the child. In that case, DNA fingerprinting can be done. Criminal identification and forensic. So you know the suspect or you suspect someone, you match their DNA with the DNA found at the crime scene. Okay. Then it is used for personal identification. With the help of DNA fingerprinting, you can find out the things that, about yourself, right? And then close relations of an intending immigrant. So let's just say there is an immigrant that came to your country. You wanted to find out whether or not you are related to that person, then also. In either of these cases, the DNA fingerprinting can be applied. Any doubts?
Ma'am,
Hmm.
the dark and the light bands, what
To
do they
show
represent?
repeats. Like how in
Repeats.
one DNA repeats are there, in another DNA repeats are there. So those repeats can be studied in order to find out whether or not both the DNA are same or different.
Yes.
So with this, finally, we are done with the chapter. Molecular basis of inheritance is now completed. Clear?
Yes.
Which is the chapter after this? Which one?
Evolution.
Evolution. Okay. What is the last thing you were writing?
Ma'am, frame shift mutation.
Frame shift mutation. Now see, whatever it will be possible to write for today's class, you write it. Okay. Now your exam is on 14th August, right? I saw your this thing
Yes.
schedule.
Bio test is
Huh.
on 14.
So principle of inheritance I've done with you, and we
Yes.
have done molecular basis, right? All the topics are done. So
Yes.
your syllabus, like your portion from my side is completed for your school's test. Now I will be beginning the next chapter from the next class. Okay. Or maybe we can solve questions of this chapter. So before the
Yes.
next class, before I start the evolution chapter, you come prepared with this chapter and then I will
Okay.
make you solve some questions like MCQs. So just to know how much you've understood and everything. If there's a doubt, I'll clear your doubt. Other than that, I will be sending you these notes. Okay. So today, however much you can write, you write. The rest of it, you will take down the notes. Okay. On your own. Frame shift is done.
No, ma'am, I was writing frame shift.
Okay.
Mom, done. Ma'am, is the experimental proof that NH4Cl is that included in this?
No, the notes of that is not there. I used NCRT to explain it to you. Before sending you the notes, I'll add it and then I'll send it to you, okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Done, Raneem?
Yes, ma'am, done.